Before we get the session started, I wanted to acknowledge Episcopal Communities and Services, your host, known as ECS. ECS has been serving seniors since 1923. That's almost 100 years. ECS owns and manages retirement communities from affordable housing to high-end life plan communities, all in the LA and Orange County area. The 3 retirement communities that are hosting this morning's sessions are as follows. First, the Canterbury. The Canterbury is located on the hill in Ranchos Palos Verdes with spectacular views of the Los Angeles. The second community host this morning is the Covington. The Covington is located in Aliso Viejo with Saddleback Mountain views. And finally, our third community host, Montecedro. Montecedro is nestled in the foothills of Altadena, surrounded by the San Gabriel Mountains. All 3 communities are now conducting both virtual and live tours by appointment. So if interested, please reach out to our team. Our contact information will be available at the end of the session. For those of you just joining us, welcome to today's webinar titled Integrative Health, Nutrition Guidance for Optimal Energy, Sleep, and Cognition. We are very excited to have Derek Johnson with us today. Derek is a well-renowned holistic and functional nutritionist in LA with his own nutritional consultancy firm called Derek Johnson Nutrition. His clients over the years have ranged from Reese Witherspoon and Chris Pratt to professional athletes, moms, CEOs, and teenagers. In addition to personally coaching thousands of people across the country to reach and maintain their wellness goals, Derek has served as the Executive Nutrition Director of Fitness Ridge Worldwide, which was the resort organized behind the Biggest Loser television series. He is a scientific advisor for Designs for Health, a trusted source for high-energy research-backed nutritional products since 1989. He has a practical program to share with us today about how to take simple steps to improve your energy, sleep, and cognition for ultimate longevity. Take it away, Derek.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and I'm very excited to be here virtually with you. Definitely, like probably most of you, getting used to the virtual thing. Most of my talks in the past have been in person, but I'll try not to move a lot. I'm used to walking on stages, but this is, I'm excited to be here, share some things with you. And as you heard, it'll be great if you can type in any questions that you may have, and I will answer those at the end rather than kind of pausing throughout the presentation. So let's jump into this and talk next. Let's see here. I think it's gonna make me do it manually on the slideshow. Maybe not. Let me get rid of this pointer and see if that helps. There we go. So a little background on me outside of what you heard. I've got into something that we call integrative nutrition and integrative medicine. I'm partnered with different doctors at my private practice, both virtually and in person. I traditionally started out as a dietitian, but I had a lot of health problems. And what I was learning in school and what I was practicing wasn't getting me anywhere. I had a lot of stomach and mood issues and really had no idea that a lot of what I learned in school was just, old information and incorrect. So that was about the 24 years I've been doing this. About 17 years ago, I really had a pivot where I met some brilliant functional medicine doctors and nutritionists who just really guided me into a different direction, went back to school, and I've been helping people ever since. So I'm excited to share some of this information. I have so much to share. I'm going to try not to go overboard here, but I'm excited to give you some of that. So we're going to talk about 3 tips or 3 areas to help you get to these things that are going to really change the way you start and end your day. We'll talk about some healing and stealing foods and what that means, and then a lot about on the end of the day sleep. And then again, we'll do the Q&A at the end. So don't forget to put those questions in the chat box. And if you do have your cell phone out, feel free. I know this will be recorded, but feel free to take pictures of any of the slides. There's a couple good ones in here. I think that can be very helpful. So what integrative medicine and integrative nutrition is, in short, is the philosophy of treating the cause of something, not the symptom. So if somebody has heartburn, for instance, we want them to, not just take Tums. I'm not against the Tums, but we would really prefer that patient figure out why the heartburn's happening. If someone's getting headaches, again, they can take a Tylenol or something like that, but the headache and the heartburn are still there with the use of those over-the-counter medications. We want to figure out why. So today we're going to talk about some things that really can help understand the cause or the why of something's going on and not just, looking at symptoms, meaning even things like low energy, poor sleep, and poor cognition. So the pace of life, I think we've all over time, sometimes have been forced to listen to the body when it whispers, or rather when it shouts, and not listening to it when it whispers. I personally, working with, I would say men are much worse at this. If my wife was here, she would even nudge me, and we tend to kind of just, push through until something bad happens. So it's really helpful to start to listen to the symptoms of the body. And I would say that most of us, including myself, at some point in our life, there was a period of time that we led that the human body is not designed to lead, right? Unless you're living in the communities you are now, I think you guys have the best opportunity. So this is very exciting to present to you. But the people kind of doing the 9-to-5 stuff, if they're going into work, teaching kids home from school and things like that. So I want to teach you some things that can actually help you go back and heal if that was you at some point in your life. And so we're going to talk about these 3 topics in relationship to, the areas that we're going to help focus on. And I think that they're going to make a massive impact. So let's get started. Number 1 is start to the new day. It is very much, this is an understatement of the importance of how you start your day. And it's something that is overlooked and rarely talked about. So you'll see here, water, lemon, sunlight. You might have an idea where I'm going with this. So I can tell you right now that once you wake up, there's a non-negotiable rule with the human body. It's not my rule. It is just a non-negotiable rule that every human wakes up dehydrated, even if they don't drink caffeine or alcohol, which those are not bad. Those are great topics of conversation in the Q&A. But you have to hydrate. So Ayurvedic medicine is the oldest medicine on the planet. And room temperature water is best for you, but it's not necessarily, a must, a non-negotiable. The key is to hydrate. So how much? It could be as little as 8 ounces. The more, the better with that first glass of water. So if you can get 10, 12 ounces, that would be very good. If you would like to add in a little bit of fresh lemon, that is also something very beneficial for the body. A lot of benefits to lemon. And then after we hydrate, we'd want to move. And movement can be something very simple as far as stretching. Movement could be, I hear you offer some fantastic classes that you can do sort of from your balcony patio area and doing something like that. And at the same time, getting sunlight. I do have clients that just do small movements just to get their blood flowing, while they're making their coffee or tea. And then the sunlight is, I'm going to spend a little time on this because there's a lot of people not getting sunlight in the first part of the day. And here in Pacific Standard Time, I'm in Los Angeles myself, is you have till about 10:30, 11 at the latest to get about 15 minutes of sunlight. And I want to talk to you why that's important. And you don't have to directly be in the sunlight. You just can't be behind a window like I am here in my office. You need to be outside. So if you're under an umbrella or a covered area and the sun is out, even if it's gloomy, you're getting these rays of sun that your eyes, and believe it or not, your ears pick up. You absorb light both ways. And what that does is it increases hormones that are very good for us for waking up. And it actually is the beginning of your body shutting off a hormone called melatonin that is going to make you a better sleeper. So believe it or not, I'm going through all of this because we're going to lead up until sleep at the end of this. And sunlight plays a very, important role for that. And it really helps boost mood. Some of you may have heard of things called seasonal affect disorder, where places like Seattle that have not a lot of sunlight and a lot of rain have higher levels of depression and things like that. So please get out, get some sunlight. You can be moving and hydrating and doing all of these things. And then, not that I can see everybody here, but raise your hand if you like tea or coffee. I'm a huge espresso fan. Coffee is not bad for you. That's another great thing, again, to put into the question and answer at the end, or the chat box. But you can kind of do these things simultaneously. And if you hydrated and had your coffee and then decided to move and get in the sun, that's fine. You can move the order, but hydration just has to stay first. So please take a photo of this or use something to memorize, but I can promise you this will change your life if you do nothing else. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but there's a lot of power with following these steps. So after you've kind of done that, and then people start to think about, well, if I worked out, which morning workouts are fantastic, you can actually work out in a fasted state, which we're going to talk about. One of the biggest things I see with the clients and patients that come into our practice is they're very inconsistent with their eating pattern. And some consistency has happened. There are some benefits to this pandemic as far as being home, cooking more. I know you guys have some great restaurants and things, and rules are changing as far as availability and what you can get. The key is the consistency. So, and again, what I've highlighted here is just not what you eat, but when you eat it. So I'd like to talk to you about timing next. So I'm going to go slow on this, but it's very simple. There's, most of the clients and patients we work with from all ages. I don't care if someone's, 14 years old or they're 85. We all have something called a fast. Where we get the word breakfast from is from breaking the fast. Most of you know this. And so here on the very bottom of the screen, it says your fast starts right after the last thing that you eat or drink the night before. So if last night you had dinner at 7 and you had a little snack at 7:30, water and tea do not count. That would begin your fast. So, and then if you ate again this morning at 7:30, right, that would be a 12-hour fast. And, these are different windows. The 10 stands for the hours, and then the other number stands for a fast. So, I'll give you one more example. If you fast closer to 14 hours, that means if you finished at 7:30, your first meal of the day would be 9:30. Why am I talking to you about fasting? Well, if there's anyone on this webinar today that is looking to balance blood sugar, lose weight, have better cognition, believe it or not, research has shown this, and we've known this for a long time. Extending the amount of fasting time we have can be extremely helpful, and has a lot of anti-aging effects, and will help in both cognition, energy, sleep, and more. So you don't want to be aggressive with it. I tell everybody, extend by 1 hour at a time. If you're at 12, try 13. And so one of your mornings might look like the slide that I just showed you. Maybe you start getting some movement. I know a lot of people have been getting as much movement as they should, even if it's a walk. That then would extend your fast because you're getting some form of exercise, and then you could just go to breakfast, and maybe you're eating breakfast at 8:30 instead of 7:30. So I hope that helps. We can take some more Q&A on this. I do actually seminars just on fasting, if that is just to tell you how much information's out there. I've tried to condense it. So what are the takeaways with this is when you break your fast, it's very important I'm going to minimize it so it's out of this. There you go. Minimize to look at what you have when you break your fast. So I find it very popular amongst so many people when they break their fast, they're just eating sugar. They're drinking orange juice, they're having a muffin, they're having a bagel, and they're forgetting about the fat. And I know Dr. Trin did talk to you, if you were on the last webinar, about the importance of fat and how we've all sort of been lied to, right? That, all these fats are not bad for us. There's a guy named Mark Hyman who runs the largest integrative medicine practice at the Cleveland Clinic, which is world renowned. He wrote a very good book called, basically Eat Fat, Burn Fat. And it's understanding, or the book title was Eat Fat, Get Thin, actually. And the point here is healthy fats are good for us. They've been sort of demonstrated as these bad things. And so I put some examples, by not just having carbohydrates. I know avocado toast is very important. I would say that toast being gluten-free would be best, but not necessary. But putting some avocado and some eggs and having that versus just having maybe some fruit by itself. And another example, these are actually, I make these for my kids still, even though they're not in school, with apple and peanut butter. So the apple would be the carbohydrate, and then the fat would be like an almond butter or peanut butter. And it's very important that we combine these. And I'd like to talk to you about why combinations of having fats and proteins when you have, carbohydrates is extremely important. So this is just a simple graph, and I'll bring back up my, my little pointer here, and I will show you what happens. So many of you, when you eat a carbohydrate, your blood sugar will go up. Who's ever experienced that blood sugar high and then all of a sudden crash, right? We call those hyper and hypoglycemia. When you have a carbohydrate by itself, by looking at the screen, you just go up and down, just like the roller coaster ride. When you have a fat or protein, combined, like that apple with some peanut butter, or rather than just having fruit, you have that avocado and some eggs and things like that, your blood sugar stays stable. You get little speed bumps. You don't get the roller coaster ride. So keep that in mind. Start to think about how you start your day, when you fast, and making sure you have enough healthy fats and proteins at that first meal. And we'll talk about some examples. And I know you guys have another seminar coming up soon where people are going to really dive into the food. So I wanted to talk more on the physiology. So this is a really good picture of a breakfast plate. And what you'll notice here is that, you know, you have healthy fats. That might be everything from avocado to nut butters to olive oil. You'll have some kind of perhaps a grain, like I think fruit is by far one of my favorites, especially at this time of the year, although we're getting towards the end of the season. And then some type of a protein. So very similar to that avocado toast, right? The toast was the carb, avocado was the fat, the eggs were the protein, and then maybe you have a little bit of fruit. So just start to think about a balanced plate at breakfast, and perhaps your breakfast now might be pushed out a little bit if it's something that you so desire. But the most important thing we've covered so far is how you start your day, and, you know, with the hydration and everything, and then balanced meal when you do break your fast. And as far as lunch and dinner, it's not much different. I think most people have seen some picture of a plate where half the plate is veggies here, right? And then we're getting, you know, a third of the plate or so in some type of a carbohydrate, and then some protein, and then the fats can be mixed in, right? You might have salmon that has some really good fats in it. You might have a really good olive oil dressing or some avocado. So again, we're talking balance here. I'm not saying that someone can't every now and then have a bowl of pasta. I'm just saying that a balanced plate, most of the time, you're going to do much better with. So that was tip one. I know it was a lot on how to start your day, but it is a fantastic way, and it will make massive changes for you. And I would like next to talk about, you know, eating real or processed foods. So within that, you know, foods do one of two things. They heal or they steal, meaning, you know, sometimes foods that we eat will give us energy, and sometimes they'll take it away, right? If it's a fake food, which we're going to talk about, they many times will decrease inflammation, right? We know that a lot of real foods that don't have labels are very anti-inflammatory, and a lot of our packaged foods can be very inflammatory. Cognition, right? Believe it or not, you're going to learn today why the foods we eat have a direct impact between the brain and the gut. Foods, who's ever eaten or drinking too much at night and realized, you know, they had a really poor sleep. Balanced moods, right? We know that we can have highs and lows. If you've ever seen that funny commercial, there was a Snickers commercial about being hangry, or there's also another one called anxious. We know the foods can make us more angry and or anxious. So has anyone ever grown up with something like this? This is a Nutri-Grain bar. And the point in this, I grew up with these, is understanding that we have 60 some ingredients in this bar. And when we buy these, what we do is we shop based on pictures. It's called picture shopping and label shopping. We're not looking at the ingredients. So your takeaway from here is to be an ingredient shopper. The first thing you look at is not the nutrition facts, is always the ingredients to find out what's in there. There's nothing real about this piece of food. And I can't even call it food, although there is some things in it, mostly sugar. There's not a single strawberry in it. And so, you know, avoid things like this. This particular company is Elemental. I like them because they're based out of Los Angeles. They're a very, you know, really clean bar. And if you read these things, organic peanut butter, organic dark chocolate, organic flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts. I mean, the point is you could take all these ingredients, buy them at a grocery store and make it yourself. And these taste fantastic. I can tell you right now, a little bit of peanut butter on this dark chocolate peanut butter bar is phenomenal. It's so good. Kids love it. They're always a great judge of how something tastes. So another example, you know, we'll stick to the peanut butter theme here because it is very popular. I really enjoy an almond butter, but Justin's, I like these packets. I throw, you know, they're great to kind of keep in your purse or in kind of a bag if you ever need a snack. But the ingredients are dry roasted almonds and palm oil. And again, back to Dr. Tran talked about oils, coconut oil, palm oil. A lot of these oils are not bad for us like we once thought. But the thing that will get you, and I know Dr. Tran talked about this, it's one of the most important things I'll probably say today, is vegetable oils are literally one of the worst things that you can consume. And a lot of this stuff at Jiffy, they have sort of the soybean oil, which is by far the worst of them all. And they're just highly processed oils. So just buy something that has a couple ingredients in for you, and don't picture shop. Don't go for the reduced fat. Anything that has high fat or low fat is going to have more sugar. So still not convinced. We're going to talk a little bit about today, just taking a look at what goes on between the brain and the gut. So did you know that the bacteria in your stomach play a very big role on the amount of calories that you absorb from your food? So much that we have found with identical twins, they will find them that their one is obese and overweight. And we now know, and as gross as this is, there is transplants of their, fecal matter, and they can do these in studies, and they can take the fecal matter from an overweight identical twin and put them in mice without changing their diet or exercise. And the mice become obese. And then they take the normal identical twins, fecal matter, and put it into the mice, and the mice go back to normal weight without changing diet or exercise. So it's very important to understand, well, what does that mean? That means that the food that we are eating every day and things that we are drinking are influencing everything in our stomach. We actually call the stomach the second brain. So here we have our first brain and our second brain. Where do you get butterflies? Your stomach. Who has ever seen or heard, rather, of the saying, go with your gut? That's where it came from. And I think everyone listening to this, we've all had that, I didn't listen to my gut intuition, because they're constantly talking. Over 95% of brain gut studies have been done in the last 6 years. That is a staggering stat. And so did you know that 90% of your serotonin, that feel-good hormone, is secreted in your stomach, not your brain? And things like obesity, depression, Alzheimer's, which, believe it or not, they're also calling diabetes 3, and your immune system are all related to the stomach. So my point here is the food you eat, the decisions you make, you're influencing not just your GI tract, but your brain and the communication between the two of them. And obviously, if you get a chance to go to a farmer's market or buy fresh fruits and vegetables, or get something that's, made from a farmer's market type of shopping list at a restaurant, no label needed, and we're going to be in good hands there. I think Hippocrates said it best, right? Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. Okay, so we're going to jump in, just checking the time here, into sleep. So I hope that you learned something there, and are starting to think about choosing more foods on the healing side, because not only do they heal and give us better energy, they're influencing the bacteria in our stomach that have everything to do with weight to cognition, Alzheimer's, and so making better decisions over time goes a long way. So you've all probably heard about sleep. I'm going to give some book recommendations too about a lot of the stuff that I talked about today. 7 to 8 hours, is pretty standard. But I would like to talk to something you may not have heard about, which is about, when you go to sleep. Everyone's a little bit different. There's a book written called The Power of When, and he really discusses chronotypes. You can actually, Google it and write in Power of 10. There's a test you can take. And it chronotypes you based on animals. It's kind of fun, meaning that I have a friend whose, chronotype is a wolf. He likes to go to bed around 12 and likes to get up around 7. Right? And so that's his chronotype. My chronotype is a bear. I like to go to bed around 10, and I like to get up about 5. Don't worry, sometimes we try to put everybody in a box. Everyone should eat the same thing, or everyone should fast for the same amount of time, and everyone should go to bed at the same amount of time. It's not true. You got to figure out where you're at in your life, and probably, it changes, right? So just think about, we're going to talk not so much about the hours, but how to get better sleep. And don't worry if you go to bed at different times. So we're going to talk a little bit about those things in one sec. I just wanted to point out that research indicates, and they say this is a very underestimated amount, but over 100 million Americans suffer from chronic problems related to sleep. The body will heal at any time, but I want you to know that impaired sleep, we have high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, depression, and more. And can you see the link here? if all of a sudden we're eating poor foods that are getting us bad sleep, that are influencing the bacteria in our stomach, they feed on each other. You kind of, no pun intended, but they make everything worse. So it's why we've got to connect all these things and do it as a kind of a whole body, holistic, integrative piece. So, you know, I want to talk to everyone a little bit about sleep tips. You may or may not have heard these things. They're very easy to do, but they make a massive difference in relationship to how well you're going to sleep. And I want to talk to everyone about, you know, not doing them all, but just thinking about things like light. So my room right now is really lit up here during the day, which is fine. But at night, if I'm staring at my computer screen or my phone, my brain thinks that melatonin, which is a sleep hormone, it thinks you're outside. It doesn't know any difference. That's called your limbic brain. It's your old brain. And so a lot of people have very bright rooms. So I highly recommend night shift. If you see the picture here of these two iPhones, if you have an iPhone, there are apps for it if you don't. It just takes, you can set the timer, it brings the color down, much like the color of these glasses. And by wearing glasses or having your computer screen or your phone be tinted, it allows for more melatonin production. It's kind of tricking the brain, saying it's just not as bright and as early as you think. So limiting technology before you go to bed, this is a massive problem worldwide, especially now with more technology based on this pandemic. But reading books, if you're a book reader, you're golden. You can read a book. I just recommend that your nightlight be, it's called an Edison bulb. They're really nice bulbs when bulbs first came out. It's not an LED. So just try and use a very light colored orange light like an Edison bulb. Think about using these night shift on your iPads or iPhones or whatever device that you have. And if you don't have it, you can get glasses. They're called blue light blocking glasses on Amazon for about $30. And it'll block everything, especially if you're watching TV late at night. Investing in a great mattress or pillow. I find that a lot of the clients and patients that refer to, you know, they might have got a new mattress that's not 8 to 10 years old, but they forgot about the pillows. And on that note, you know, dust mite covers are also very important. Trying not to eat too close to bedtime. This is a general rule. There are some exceptions, but I will say for most people, not eating, 2-3 hours and, can be very beneficial for sleep. Again, if we eat too close to bedtime, we have to be really careful because that can affect most people's sleep. And then some of the funner things that are out are some of these awesome meditation apps. The one I have down here is called Headspace. There's a bunch of them. The point with the apps is they guide you into doing things like this. They work on your breathing. They can help you meditate. I have become a better person at meditating, but the only way I did that was through an app because it's very hard for me to kind of sit still and not move around. And so I highly recommend that you think about making a change here on the sleep because, sleep is not overrated. Sleep is equally important to the food that we choose to eat every day. And I'm going to talk to you about, a couple books here in a second. And I'm going to recommend one that, is very much life-changing that lays out all of the research on sleep. But just take my word for it. I'm a big data guy and work with some brilliant physicians. And we have patients all the time that eat well and don't sleep and are very limited to where they can get. So it's very important that we do our best at both. So I have 3, I call wins. Or areas that I'd like you to focus on, and then we'll wrap this up and take some Q&A. So number 1, I think that it's just, again, remember choosing foods that heal or steal, real foods. We can talk about more of those, but avocado is a fantastic example of a food that was very healing. Packaged chips with vegetable oils would be a very bad stealing food, although they're fun and we can have fun foods, but just remember that brain gut connection and how important it is, and focus on your eating pattern and being as consistent with when you start to where you stop, and pick an hour and see where you're at and see how your body, reacts. Changing how you start and end your day. I think if you're going to start with one place, you start here, because if you hydrate, get sunlight and get some form of movement, especially movement that, with a class that you can take or something like that, and change it, you change every hormone in your body. You change how you're going to sleep that night. You change with stress. So please really think about where can you improve how you start your day. That will help you end your day. And then maybe you throw something in like with less light or doing something like that. Lastly, don't do too many things at once. Really small steps. Try, you know, like I said, the start, end of your day, or just the start maybe. I wrote, pick one thing to do at a time. The only published research in the world on changing a habit, it has to do with neuroplasticity in the brain, is 66 days. There might be a lot of great books on change a habit in 21, but there's a reason back when gyms were open, when people joined in January, it was empty by March. 66 days to change a habit. So be patient. Your red blood cells in your body take about, 90 days to fully recycle, up to 120 days. You need to know that the body, it's a biochemistry set. It's not a bank account. So just pick one particular thing to work on, add to that over time. And if you can do more than one, that's great, but be patient. Your body will heal at any time with any age with the right healing foods that you give it, and especially if you're also, sleeping. So I've got 4 books on the screen here. I'm just going to spend a minute or so talking about this, and we should be getting close to, right about 30 minutes. Then we can open it up to, some of the Q&A. And so what I'd like to do is, Mark, he's the guy who runs the Cleveland Clinic. It's a great book. If you're just like, what should I eat? What did Derek talk about? What is everyone talking about? It just lays it out, kind of like eat this and, don't eat that, but the right version. It's a fantastic book. If you have more questions on cholesterol and how it's changed, and we realized, and I believe Dr. Tran talked about this, that we know that we've been treating heart disease the same way for so many decades, and it's still the #1 killer. These physicians lay it out why and what we got wrong. One of my favorite books ever written is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. It's unbelievable, and if you're having trouble sleeping, it's a fantastic book. And on the cognition side, this could be the most powerful book, for certainly on the brain stuff ever written. Dr. Dale Breedson is literally the first MD to show how we can actually go backwards in healing and reverse. It's on here on the title, Cognitive Decline. Why drugs don't work for Alzheimer's and why they don't come out. But he really shows what goes on in here. And it's literally, if you want cognition help, this book is a must read. It is phenomenal. So you saw this up in the beginning slide. If you want more information, I do try and do better posting things on Facebook and social media. You can always just go to djn.health and learn more about me, contact my office. So right at perfect 30 minutes on the dot here, let's talk about Q&A. So what I'm going to do, there's just some subjects up here. If you want to know more about supplements, please type that in. If you want to know more about, alcohol, caffeine, stuff with sleep, diet sodas, artificial sweeteners, gluten, dairy, by all means, put that in there. And I'm going to go here, and I think we have a few chats. So, okay. #1, I wake up regularly after 4 to 5 hours of sleep. I was told I can have a cortisol spike. What can I do to get a full night's sleep? It's a great question. So a lot of people, one of the first questionnaires I have on my, when people come in is, do you wake up between 2 and 5 a.m.? And so a lot of people do wake up, and they wake up wide awake. That's actually is related to cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone that comes from your adrenal glands, which are located back here by your kidneys. The point in that is there's something going on with that, which we call the HPA axis. You don't need to memorize that. But what I would do is really start to look at blood sugar. And blood sugar plays a lot in our adrenals. So if you're one of these people spiking, it really throws off. The fasting on here, I would definitely consider doing. If you're doing a 12-hour fast, I would say for women, try not to typically go over 14 hours. Try doing that, making sure that you're eating more balanced meals like I discussed. And then my last suggestion to you, if you're struggling with blood sugar or weight, see if you have dinners that have more protein and vegetables and less starchy carbs and sugar, if that helps. It will take some time, but it will fix that. It will also help fix typically people that have a blood sugar drop and an adrenal drop between 2 and 4 p.m. it's a 12-hour cycle. So you are right. It has to do with cortisol. And then there are some wonderful supplements out there. Melatonin is a simple one. I'm a big fan of, using it, but you have to be careful with it. And if you do take melatonin, you need to take off one day, and you could also try a time-release melatonin. So what if you eat a small amount of food, is question 2, before bed? Do you have to start the process over again? Well, I think if we're getting good sleep, and you like to have a small amount of food, you don't have to start the process all over again. But depending on what time that is, if you finish at 9 p.m., then you could start at 9 a.m. And some people can fast less than 12 hours, but the data and the research shows, and this has been done worldwide, right? Fasting is part of every religion on this planet, of understanding that, not putting too much in. The thing I'll say you can get away with is focus on protein and vegetables, specifically veggies or things like bone broth. I would not put any too much energy food, which is carbohydrates like fruit, or fats like almond butter or nuts or seeds, too close to bedtime, because energy foods give the body energy, and then you go to sleep and your body goes, what do you want me to do with this? So I hope that helps. Okay, next question. Gluten, how bad is it? Oh my goodness. If I was Superman, I would say that gluten is kryptonite. And if you are, Superwoman, so whatever it is, has anyone been, I know you can't, but I'm going to tell you my personal experience in hundreds of patients that come to this practice. They said, I went to Italy, I drank and ate in Italy, and I lost weight. And I have patients that had gluten there and they were fine, and not here. Our gluten is genetically modified. I'm not saying that you shouldn't eat it, but I'm saying that you should be on a low gluten. And, the best, at the end of the day, your body is the best lab. So I would say that it's very important to do a gluten-free diet for everyone. If you can handle it for 21 days and then eat gluten and see how you feel. Sometimes you may not feel it, but I would say that hands down, if you read any of those books I recommended, if you look at any of the New York Times bestsellers by all of these brilliant physicians, nutritionists, and people, including the book that I'm currently writing, there's not a single one that recommends American gluten. So I hope that answers it. Blue light details. Blue light details, let's see. If you just type in on Amazon, blue light blocking sunglasses, you can do that. Blue light or fake light comes from computers. It's less from televisions. It's worse on iPads and iPhones. So just dimming the blue light through glasses or a device that's built in the technology, that helps dim that, is very helpful. Oh, what do I recommend for GERD? That's a big subject. I would say that find a very good healthcare practitioner. Be very careful of staying on proton pump inhibitors or over-the-counter PPIs for long periods of time. If you have GERD, be careful of the lemon in the morning. Sometimes it can make it worse. Sometimes it make it better. Digestive enzymes can be extremely helpful. And I would say that, the most important thing for, GERD is you can't eat close to bedtime. We have our patients start out with 4 hours away from bed or 3. And many times too, apple cider vinegar can be very helpful. But it's a tough one depending on, the severity. But it can be fixed. The body will heal. I can tell you that. Stevia, fantastic. Not a fan of Truvia because it's got other things in it. But stevia, my favorite stevia is at Whole Foods. It's called French vanilla stevia. It's like goopy, but it doesn't have that aftertaste. I really prefer the liquid stevias. But if you don't mind the package, the little powdered ones, stevia is safe. It's plant. You do not secrete insulin, which happens with artificial sweeteners. Does not happen with stevia. Totally safe. And if you're having stevia in your coffee rather than sugar, brilliant, because it doesn't break your fast, where sugar would actually break your fast. We didn't have time to get into that today. What are your thoughts on vitamins? How do we know which how to take? It's a great question. Let me repeat that. I read that fast. What are your thoughts on vitamins and how do we know how much to take? Well, number one, it's unfortunately not regulated. And I work with just companies that have the same information that, or guidelines that pharmaceutical companies have to do, meaning they go through the same testing and are asked by the FDA to do the same things. So I would say that, you know, if we had to go through most important, number one for me is magnesium. For cardiovascular disease and getting the right type of magnesium, I would say magnesium. Equally important as magnesium would be vitamin D, which I'm sure most of you have heard about. Even if you're getting the sun, we can't synthesize it based on where we live. Our air is not that great. And most of us are wearing SPF blocking it. So I would say magnesium, vitamin D are very important. Fish oil, but you want to be careful of how it goes from fish to capsule. It's a really hard, Elizabeth, question for me to answer because everybody needs a few of the same things. Unfortunately, we can't get most of what we need from food, especially if we're trying to go back in time and heal. So working with a really good practitioner that can help you make the right decision. Perhaps if I need to, we can figure out a way I can maybe give you all some information and email that out of the companies I like. But yeah, definitely magnesium, vitamin D, fish oil are good. And then if you're looking for antioxidants and protection, things like curcumin can be helpful. And then the fifth one would be B vitamins. Have given up meat except fish, lost my appetite for eggs and meat and beans and legumes and fresh produce, need to lower cholesterol. I would first off read that book on cholesterol. Just because you have high cholesterol doesn't mean you're going to have a heart disease. And understanding the importance of cholesterol, I can say as not a doctor that there's no documented, you know, cases of saying that, you know, eating eggs or butter as a saturated fat causes heart disease. They say that, but there's no studies to prove that. Follow Mark Hyman, look him up, look at some of his videos, look at these cardiologists that have totally changed the way that they practice. Please understand how cholesterol works. It's not all bad and we need to control it, but I wouldn't, you know, giving up it's all about the quality of the food and really understanding. So, and if you're losing your appetite for those things too, you know, a lot of times as we get older, we lose our digestive enzymes. And it makes meat's the hardest thing to digest, right? Protein's the hardest, then fat, then carbs the easiest. When you're sick, we all want carbohydrates for energy, and they're the easiest to digest. So, you know, I would look at that. And if you need to lower your cholesterol, which could be the case, which you might totally have to do, which is definitely, I'm not disagreeing with, there's some great alternatives to statins. And if you're taking a statin and that's what your doctor wants you to do, that's fine. But you can certainly make some better dietary choices and maybe get some of the, you know, foods back that you may be missing that may not be a part of the problem. Let's see, if it takes one calcium, must they take vitamin D with every capsule? If so, which, D2 or D3? D2 never take. So you basically, you have to be careful with calcium because too much of the wrong type of calcium can calcify in the arteries. The most important thing is actually in this thing is you're missing an ingredient, which most people don't know about, vitamin K. If you can take it, if you're on a blood thinner, you're going to talk to your doctor. But I would say very important to get a vitamin D3 with K1 or K2 in it. It actually is, K is the signaler for the absorption of the calcium and the D. So the missing component in this question, it's a great question, is vitamin K. And if you get that, and just make sure that you're taking a chelated calcium, also pronounced chelated, but it's chelated calcium, and you'll be good. And there's some wonderful products out there that have chelated calcium, vitamin D, and vitamin K in them. Do I need to turn off my Wi-Fi? Oh my gosh, Carol, I love this question. Do I need to turn my Wi-Fi off at night? I've read a lot on this. There's a really good book written by Dr. Mercola called EMF, and it is very unstated. On Amazon, I think mine was $22. It's a plug that's digital, and I just plug my Wi-Fi router into it, and you program it. It's very easy, and every night my Wi-Fi shuts off. If you can shut your Wi-Fi off, I highly recommend it, and always put your plane on, you know, your phone or whatever on airplane mode, and that stuff will affect your sleep. I had those in my sleep things, but sometimes people, you know, get a little turned off on that. But I love this question, and especially with the 5G coming out, it's important we can't stay away from it. It's not bad. It can be bad all the time. So yes, please turn your Wi-Fi off. What am I feeling on lectins? I think Dr. Gundry's great. He's a little crazy. I mean, I could say the same about myself, but for a lot of people, lectins are just terrible. Lectins are primarily, if you don't know, found in beans and legumes. And you have to be very, very careful with overdoing them. and because they're very inflammatory, right? Some people don't do well with cruciferous vegetables, for instance. They can't have broccoli, or, you know, and then some people don't do well with nightshades. Maybe they can't do well with onions or tomatoes. So everyone's different. But I would say that if you have any gastrointestinal issues, bloating, gas, constipation, you have to follow, you avoid beans and lectins for at least a month and then reintroduce them. This is a good segue. Gundry has a very good, and if you like beans and lectins and they bother you, if you have an Instapot, when you cook with an Instapot, it gets rid of most of the lectins. You don't have to soak. So you can do an Instapot or a crock pot. And Gundry has a really good diet cookbook for families on that. What are my thoughts on a plant-based diet? I think, you know, plant-based diets can be very helpful, but it's for a smaller population. If for my vegetarians that are doing fish and eggs, fine. If I have a vegan and they're actually a vegan, meaning they eat vegetables, so many people who eat plant-based diets, they eat too many carbs, right? And what do carbs turn into? Sugar. And you know, not to get off track, but this is a good thing to remember. Carbohydrates, right, sugar have what in common with? So the 4 big killers in the United States are heart disease, diabetes, both preventable, right? Not diabetes 2, that is. We have cancer, and then what's on the biggest rise? Alzheimer's and dementia. What do they all have in common? Sugar. So plant-based diet's fine as long as they're not too high in carbohydrates. If you have gastrointestinal issues, be careful. And I would say that, you know, most people do need some form of protein. So you got vegetarian protein powder, or you're going to supplement with that. It's because it's really important to be that. The documenting Game Changers on Netflix, sadly, I have to say it's 80% not true. But vegetarian diets can be great. And if you got someone who's a meat eater doing paleo and they're not paying attention to where their meat comes from, there are problems with that. So I think you got to find out, right? There's no one size fit all. With each person's a little bit different. Can I weigh in on probiotics and if they help people reclaim the gut? So, you know, if you have stomach issues, I would not start with probiotics in terms of reclaiming. If you've been on an antibiotic, I'll tell you what the physicians do here at the practice that I'm at. We know that 1 dose of an antibiotic takes 2.5 years to reinoculate or reclaim. I like that word, reclaim the gut health, which is reclaim the microbiota of the healthy bacteria. So we're always putting people on probiotics, usually 4 hours away when they take an antibiotic, or at least when they're done. And a lot of people do well with them. Probiotics are more like pixie dust, right? You got 4.5, 5 pounds of bacteria in the stomach. You got a little pill. The key with the probiotic is the strain and the delivery and who made it, who made the actual product for the delivery. And they're like pixie dust. They go in and they talk and they communicate. Bacteria in our stomach are very smart and they're always changing, right? We know this with bacteria, that, especially in the antibiotic world, that they've become much more resistant to antibiotics over the years. So probiotics can be helpful, but number 1 is cut out gluten, cut out inflammatory foods, see if your digestion gets better, and then you can go ahead and try probiotics. But I wouldn't start with them, but they are, I would say 75% of the patients we see take a probiotic. And sometimes only like 3 times a week. What enzymes do I recommend? For most people, you want to start out with an enzyme that does not contain betaine HCl. And I think what I'll do is I'll work with the team and give out some recommendations. You don't have to go to my store and get one. There are some really good companies on Amazon. And maybe we can create a list so that I can kind of say, here's a good, digestive enzyme and how to take it, because you've got to be careful with them. I heard if you follow a plant-based diet, you should take B12. There's a lot of things you take. B12 is one of them. You need to make sure that it's methylated B12. I know this is a lot, but B12 sublingual under the tongue is best. You actually need B9 and B12, but that's important. And you get you're missing out on a lot of other nutrients, choline, amino acids, fish oils, if you're open to it. I have a lot of vegans, and some of them are extremely healthy, but they are required, highly suggested, to take a handful of products for what they're missing. So yes, but B12 is true. Just be careful of the source, and there's nothing in it. My vitamin D is made and contains soybean oil. Yeah, this is what you get what you pay for in supplements. I would throw it away. I wouldn't even finish it. soybean oil is one of the most toxic oils on the planet. And they do that because they're trying to make more money on the product. They're delivering vitamin D as a fat-soluble vitamin with fat. How you know you have a good vitamin D is if it has vitamin K1 and or K2 in it. Talk to your doctor, figure out what your levels are. Most of our patients were getting between 50 and 80 when you get your blood work done. That translates somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 IUs of vitamin D. But yeah, I see that soybean oil in a handful of products. It's not even worth finishing it because of the soybean oil, not because of the vitamin D, but I mean, again, they're just trying to make money. What are good brands for vitamins? Yeah, I'm happy to, I'm on the scientific advisory board. I don't get paid for selling supplements being on that board for a company called Designs for Health. And Designs for Health, you see, I use their products. They're phenomenal. There's another company called Orthomolecular, and they're also on, I think, on Amazon as well. Designs for Health is really involved with Amazon and things like that as far as getting things to prove. They have some great products. Orthomolecular is, again, another really good one. And, between those two companies, you're going to find pretty much everything you need: a good fish oil, good vitamin D with vitamin K, B12. I mean, they have a little bit of everything. So hopefully that helps. And again, maybe we can work something out that I get those, to you guys. And there's other companies out there that are fantastic, but if you're taking a vitamin D with soybean oil and or a thing like a Centrum, you're literally better off not taking it. So, we want to find things that are quality, just like our food. I would say that there are supplements that heal and steal. And because it's not regulated, last thing I'll say here is that they can, cause a lot of problems in the body because, they're getting compounds from places like China and, that are just cheap and they're not regulated and they're trying to make a buck. So I work with companies that don't allow that. They do not skip steps. They only, I look at supplements as food. What are we putting in? Would I take it? And, would I give it to my children? Right? Would I give it to a client? Would I take it myself? And, just like I said before, when you get a fish oil, what fish did it come from and how did it get in that capsule? I'm thinking about that with everything so as far. And then one more came in, and then I'll stop. I appreciate all the great questions. What about shaky vitamins? Like a shake, a smoothie, or is that a brand? I'm not familiar with shaky. Again, I have to look at the ingredient list, but hopefully we can give you a list to everybody on, here's 3 or 4 companies that are really good that I recommend that we could use. So, okay. This is so much fun. I hope you all got something out of it. I'm sure that you did. Don't forget, 66 days for habit. Start small. Don't do too many things at once. Enjoy. Pleasure to be here. I really appreciate you having me, and good luck with everything going on. Hopefully we'll get through this soon, and hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Derek. That was amazing. Appreciate the time that you gave everybody to ask their questions. And if you can, maybe we can touch base offline and get some folks some information around those supplements. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll do that.
Okay. So thank you all for joining us. I appreciate it. And for those of you who haven't signed up, we've got September 9th at 10 a.m. Eat Smart, the benefits of superfoods with Chef Celebrity Ball Aronson. So I hope you can make it. There's Derek's contact information. Again, we will have a recording out to you. So we appreciate you attending and have a great day. Thank you.